Hey everybody, this is my 40-gallon waterfall tank, and today I've been in here tinkering around with it. Made a little bit of progress, but before we see what we've gotten to so far this afternoon, I want to show you a little bit of what I started with. I did shoot some opening sequence, and then I was going to shoot some video of me tearing some stuff down and all that kind of stuff, and it never really turned out. But I do want to show you what the upper basin where my leak was actually looked like once I pulled my temporary lining out of that. So let's take a moment and have a look at that, and then we will get back into what we've accomplished since then. I do want to stop periodically and catch everybody up on what's been going on so far. So I've got it shut down, got my filter down there back up to full crank. I've been moving the plants and stuff out of the way, and we have gotten into the top basin up here, and I wish I had turned my flash on in advance and thought about it, but it's really kind of cruddy down here. There's still some moisture, and the silicone is just peeling up. So I've peeled away a lot of the loose stuff, but I know the leak is right in here. When I was building this thing, I always had trouble getting this area to seal up. Alright, so you can see we do have it back up and running again. And we've got an extra tier built up on top there. So we've now got even more waterfall than we had before. But we'll get into that in a minute. What I did in the basin there was I pulled a lot of that loose silicone rubber out of there that was in there from before. And underneath of it was that white sealant that I used originally. For my longtime viewers that know, when I originally made this, I used a sealant that I did not realize until it was too late was not designed for being continuously in contact with, or especially underwater. And so I started trying to seal over top of that. And then what would happen would be, even if there was the tiniest of little pinprick leaks in the rubber, it would weep through, it would get that sealant wet, which would then expand, and as it expanded, it would tear the silicone rubber that was over top of it. And it would exacerbate the leak, and it would get worse and worse. So I struggled with that quite a lot when I first got started putting this thing together. And what I found when I pulled all of that stuff out from underneath there was I could see that white stuff, and I could see how it was swollen and wet. So what I wound up doing was taking 2 entire tubes of the silicone, just gooped it all in there, smeared it all around, put a glove on and smeared it all over everything. And then you can probably see that blue there. I took a tarp and laid tarp in all through there, all the way up across the back, and let that cure for about an hour. And then once that finished curing, I laid the trash bag back over top of the tarp. So the trash bag's just sort of lying there, and the tarp is kind of glued into position. So that should definitely prevent it from leaking anymore in the future. I also removed the piece of wood here. That was all dried and nasty, and as soon as I touched it, it was starting to crumble away. And so now that we've got these dead nettles over here, and again, dead nettles is what these plants are called. I'm not suggesting that they're no longer living. They're just called dead nettles, and that is because they're not the stinging type of nettles. You can actually touch these without any injury or anything, and so they're called dead nettles. So the dead nettles will grow in a little more, and then we can get up on my step stool here, but I've been working. I've got water sprite floating in the basin, so that should start growing in, and I have a rock down here to keep it from flowing out the other end. And then with this, this is basically the first segment of what would be an outdoor water feature pond or something, and I've had it forever, and I bought it originally to put on this waterfall and never did. And so I finally got around to doing that today, and you can see that I've got my arrowhead plant turned so it's going to grow this way and into the basin. I've also got floating water sprite in there, and I have a rock holding down some Java fern, and the roots from that Java fern are helping direct the water more directly down rather than out, because I'm afraid we're going to go over the edge there, and I don't want to do that. So, in order to prop up my new basin there, I did it the way I always do it, which was just shove stuff in there and kind of made it work. The back of this waterfall tank always looked pretty much ridiculous anyway. It's all made out of expandable foam and, you know, again, just sort of mishmashed together. So this is no different. What I did was I just piled some pieces of wood up here. I laid another piece of wood across here, which I then cut a notch into. All this is new right here. I cut a notch into the original back part of it over, you know, this part, and I stuck a piece of wood in. And then once it was in there, I began spray foaming around it to lock that in place. I put this piece of PVC in just to give it some added weight underneath, and I've got that all spray foamed in and locked into place. And so it's not going anywhere. That's all rock solid. It may look, you know, terrible, but I could care less what it actually looks like. I won't come back here and look at this part of it. And even if I do, I know what it looks like, so it's not some shocking, terrible thing to me. I did it right. I actually installed the hose to the basin the way it's meant to be, rather than, you know, I was thinking about just plugging this hole up and then just draping the hose over the top, but I decided I would go ahead and do it the proper way. And so there you go. We've got it back up and running, and the only thing I'm going to do now is come back once this is cured, and I'm going to take a razor blade and trim that blue and maybe some of the black liner off that you can still see right there at the edge. And again, I know it's not going to look beautiful. You're still going to see all this, but I'm hoping what will happen is over time all of this will grow back in. I planted some water sprite right here, and you can actually see this piece right here is already growing upwards and doing well. And of course, once this water sprite up here starts growing, it's, you know, the green should hang over the edges and soften all those lines, and you won't be able to see the tarp as much. And likewise up here, I'm hoping you won't be able to see this basin up there as much, and so on and so forth. Again, this is really just to get me through the winter, and then next spring or summer when the weather's nice, we can go out in the yard where we can really work with some epoxy resin and fiberglass and stuff, and we can build a really cool waterfall next year. So this doesn't have to be anything permanent, and to be honest with you, it's probably more sturdily constructed now than it was before I started, with that tarp and that liner and everything in there. Again, it may look terrible, but it's probably more watertight now than it's ever been. And so I think we're good to go, and it's going to be a matter of just letting all the plants and everything grow back in and fill the tank back in. So there you go. That's my update for now for what's going on in the waterfall tank, and we will just keep going and see where it develops to. So hopefully it'll fill in nicely, and we will get some good thick, lush growth. I also don't think I mentioned this or not in this video, but I have before in other videos. I've got some Java in there. I've got some Java Windelove. I've got Water Sprite, and I've got Java Moss all tucked in back there, which hopefully will start growing and filling in that area too. Some of it's doing well already, and it definitely doesn't look like it's dying off. So I have high hopes for what we've got going on here. And in fact, what I've been doing is keeping this light turned off during the day, because I just don't really need all that incredible amount of light shining on all that stuff just yet. It definitely gives the waterfall a definitely different feel with only having this spotlight on at the moment. And then of course down in the tank we have that spotlight, or floodlight I should say. So there you go, everybody. There's today's update on the waterfall. That's the progress I made. We've got even more waterfall than we had before. So thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed. And then, of course, this is my waterfall tank. So thanks again, and I'll see you real soon in the next one.